In the last section, we finished up a refactor that moved a bunch of logic from our main function inside of the main.dart file into a new custom widget that we defined inside of our app.dart file. Inside of the app.dart file, we created a new custom widget by defining a new class that extended the base class of stateless widget. We made this a stateless widget because we did not expect it to have to maintain any of its own data that would change over time. That might change at some point, and it might change very shortly, but at least for right now, it was a good place to get started. Anytime that we define a custom widget, we must define a method on that custom widget called build. The build method has 3 requirements. First off, it must be called build. That's obvious enough. Secondly, it must return a widget. Third, it must accept a single argument that we referred to as context. And you'll sometimes hear this referred to as the build context, because that's technically the type of the value that gets passed in. We will eventually come back and talk a lot more about what this context thing is, but for right now, we're just going to gloss over it a little bit. So then inside of our build method, we assembled a new material app widget that had all of its own custom widgets nested inside of it. We then returned the entire thing. Then back over inside of our main.dart file, we imported the custom app widget that we just created. We then created a new instance of that widget and passed the instance off to the run app function. Then presumably behind the scenes, run app took that instance of our app widget and I assume at some point in time probably called this build method right here. It got back all these definitions of what our app is supposed to look like and then rendered all those widgets onto the screen of our mobile device. So that's a review of where we're at right now. Now before we move on, there's one last little concept I want to reveal here. Okay, so this is what we refer to as our widget tree, and it's a very handy way of visualizing all the different widgets that are being displayed inside of our application. So at this point, everything inside of our application is being rendered ultimately by the app widget that we just put together. The app widget is returning from its build method the material app widget. So as a direct child to the app, we have our material app. Then as a direct child to the material app, we have the scaffold that we put together. Then the scaffold itself shows 2 widgets, the floating action button and the app bar. And each of those are showing its own respective widgets of icon and text. So again, this is a handy way to picture our widgets as they are built inside of our application. And we're going to eventually create a couple of different diagrams like this to better understand the flow of data inside of our application when we start introducing state or data that changes over time inside of our app as well. Okay, so that's a good review. Let's take a quick pause right here. We're going to come back to the next section and we're going to start working on the next piece of functionality inside of our app.